The opinions expressed by the host and guests in this show are not necessarily the views of Children's Health Defense.
Good morning, CHD. We're live here at CHD TV with Financial Rebellion. It's Thursday, the 23rd of July, 2026. We have an amazing guest for you today. But first, we're going to go to the news. So, first up is, well, this should disturb everyone. Smart bassinet for babies collects and shares sensitive data. So these are little bassinets that, I mean, I don't know why people would want to put their baby in a bassinet. The baby should be on the mother, in my opinion. Flesh to flesh type thing, as they say, skin to skin, I think is what they call it. But everything about that disturbs me greatly because I'm terribly old fashioned. What do you both think?
Well, this is about an employer, which I think is a state government, that's providing this $1,600 bassinet free for employees. So I'm assuming the employer has access to all the information that's being collected. Now, apparently there's some sort of shield that is supposed to protect against the aspects of it that involve EMF. So it cuts EMF poisoning somewhat, but the data it's collecting is date of birth, name, all this information. And as always, the question is, where on earth is this data going? Who has access to it? Is it going into the control grid? And if you have a newborn baby, that's a great way to start the file, the control file on the baby. Catherine?
Don't use it. Just don't use it. I don't care if it's free. It's not free.
No, nothing's free.
Right. So
let's go next article up. So the collaborative privacy advocacy community. Catherine, what is this about?
So the brouhaha over licensed readers, flock cameras, and cameras in your cars and other really invasive methods of destroying privacy has got more and more people worried about privacy. And this is a wonderful website. It's a great resource to how to protect your privacy. So lots of practical advice. And I wanted to make sure you had this because I think it's a very useful tool to help you think about and take action to protect your privacy.
But, and I'm sure Lou will put that link in the show notes. So next article, please, Lou. Okay, so Salary report. Crime that pays is crime that stays. DOJ just wants a percentage of the profits. It's a kickback model that facilitates plunder. Catherine and Carolyn, tell us what this is about.
So this is more bad news. The Department of Justice has had a long tradition of not prosecuting corporate crime, including banking crime during the financial crisis. And of course, the more individuals working for corporations know they are free to break the law, and the only ramification could be a percent of profits shared with the Department of Justice, then the sort of the more criminal behavior we've seen steadily for the last 2 decades. And we get an announcement cover of the Wall Street Journal this week saying the Department of Justice is pulling back. Now, I didn't realize they could pull back because I thought they were pulled back pretty far. So the fact that they're pulling back further to me is very, very bad news, because what it means is as long as I kick back some of the profits to the Department of Justice, crime is a good business model for corporations now. And that's very, very concerning.
A lot of this has to do with pulling back on fines. Well, if they find the actual costs of all the bad behavior of even just the banks, they could pay for a lot of the remedies and force all sorts of things to happen, like privacy in this context. But, the corporate crime is just this. All this does is incentivize the companies to figure out a way not to have anybody look at anything.
The message to corporate executives are you're safe individually to break the law. And then it's really a financial equation as to how much are the profits from the crime versus how much you're going to have to kick back to the Department of Justice. And unfortunately, in many, many cases, crime pays.
And
You're
usually,
you're creating a business model that supports and encourages crime.
and just understand that when people, the regular populace, is harmed by something and the government fines a company, they're not taking that fine and paying it to the people who are injured. That's going into the treasury.
All right, let's get the next article up. Hegseth estimates
So,
Iran war has reached $37.5 billion.
so the Secretary of War was testifying on the budget. They are asking for 1.5 trillion, which is a $500 billion increase over last year, and last year had a pretty big increase over the year before. This is an extraordinary amount of money, and the signal basically, if you look at the money that's rolling into a lot of the infrastructure for the control grid, it's a tsunami of money coming out of the government in the CHIPS Act and the big beautiful bill that's basically creating corporate monopolies, and war is now becoming the biggest business. Now, when Hegseth said $38 trillion, and I can't fathom how he came up with that number, because if you look at the destruction of U.S. bases in the Gulf, the number is much, much bigger than that. So he has a very constricted view of what the number is. The other reason it's misleading, we just, on Money and Markets this week, we showed a clip of a retired admiral saying the Iraq war took 20 years. This will take at least that. And instead of saying this war is going to last 4 to 5 weeks, which was what they said in February, now we're talking about a 20-year war. And if that's the case, it's important to understand that a 5-week cash flow produces a lot less value on a stock than a 20-year cash flow. And so between the appropriations going up 50%, and sort of what's been happening. Yesterday, the House voted to pass Section 219 and the NDAA, integrating the Israeli military with the U.S. government. So if you look at the combination of things going and what the expense is, we're talking about something that's going to cost, if Iraq costs $6 or $7 trillion, this is, if what is being said is true, this is going to cost, double that. And it's going to swing an enormous sector of the economy into defense out of, much more important, I would say, technological innovation and various innovations to make society better. So I would say the Secretary of War dramatically understated the cost of this war.
You can call it defense, but I call it war and offense.
Oh, just on another note, talking about war, I was talking to some, let's say, military people the other day who were ordered to deploy to the Middle East and are standing firm and refusing to because they're making them take the anthrax, which I don't know if you know about the anthrax, but it's the most disabling,
it's the most
horrific,
dangerous. The most dangerous. It's a death certificate.
With all kinds of problems going on in the military, but I'm glad they're standing firm. I'm glad they're not just shooting themselves up with anthrax. And I mean, you couldn't get anything worse to put into someone. But anyway, that's another subject. But just FYI, I'm really proud of the military.
Could the defender do an article on that?
I'll speak to Catherine.
Okay.
Yes, I mean we need to, but we need to be fighting for them. They should not be,
absolutely
being made to have anthrax to fight for us.
Well, here's the thing, if you're going to go to war, you don't want to lose a war. And if you're going to poison your soldiers before they deploy, you've got a big problem.
That's right. That's right. So yeah, that's another one. Maybe I'll get Meryl Nass on at some point to talk about the dangers of anthrax, because I don't know. There's a film, I can't remember. It's called Standing Order or something like that, and it shows how the people who have had children after the anthrax, they've come out with no limbs, and like it's really toxic, bad stuff. It should not be injected.
So Ty and Charlene Bollinger did a series on vaccines, and they had one piece of it on the anthrax, which is very, very good.
Yeah. So anyway, we need to stand by the military on that. All right, let's get the data center article up. It's our last article before we bring our amazing guest on. Cheating the system, how AI data centers bypass water and air pollution laws and permits. Well, we've been talking about data centers on Financial Rebellion for a long time now.
Right, but the local debate is significant. I told you the last time we discussed this, Tennessee passed a law saying you can't do a data center if it increases water or electricity charges or supply. And that's one of the big debates at the local area. And of course, the question for many areas is how do you know for sure what the real usage is going to be? Because there have been a lot of surprises in different areas where they thought it was one thing and it's turned out to be another.
Yeah. Well, let's bring our guest on, Catherine. Can you?
Okay. Well, this is a real treat. Travis Oliphant is a CEO, head of Open Teams. He has a long history as a software developer, a data scientist, and an entrepreneur in the tech area. He was part of the original Python ecosystem. He helped create a great documentary that we had as movie of the week about it. But he created NumPy package, which was helped with the numerical computation in Python and many other accomplishments, and co-founder or founder of several tech companies, but now running Open Teams, and is a great. I know of no one better to explain OpenAI and what's happening in the debate around artificial intelligence. He, as Travis was originally introduced to me, he was an OG, as in, original gangster of the people who created AI. So we're talking to one of the real founders of the AI phenomenon. Travis, thank you so much for getting up early. I know you're out traveling on the West Coast, but it's a real treat. And you joined me not that long ago on the Salir Report. It was a very popular and wonderful conversation. So I appreciate your taking the time out of your busy schedule to join us.
Oh, Catherine, thank you so much. It is a pleasure and honor to be here. Really appreciate getting to know the both of the rest of the hosts here, Carolyn and Polly Tommy. I'm thrilled to have the discussion. It's such an important conversation.
So we're going to start off with Carolyn. We have a term for the day, and it's OpenAI. So Carolyn, take us away. But Travis, we're going to quickly turn it over to you. Open source AI.
Carolyn, you're muted, I think.
Well, I'll use it without the microphone. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Said it was on Bumblebee, but apparently it's not. I originally came up with OpenAI, and then I realized, oh my goodness, that's the name of a company. That's not actually the term. The term is open source AI. So I did a little bit of research. Whoa, what's the difference? And I got a little bit of the history of OpenAI, which originally was a charitable organization, or at least had charitable purposes under one of the corporate statutes. And Elon Musk put a whole lot of money into it. He says on the assumption that this was going to be an open source and that they published it the way we would get LibreOffice and Ubuntu that we have talked about. You can download the software. It's free and you can do with it what you want. And originally that was apparently the idea for OpenAI, and then the board, I guess, against Elon Musk's wishes, went for profit, and now it's private, and they're not as open. But that's the background. And there was a case, Elon Musk sued for if his money back, or to force it to go back to a nonprofit model, and the courts determined the case according to procedural matters, so never ruled on that issue because they said he missed the statute of limitations. So that's the background on OpenAI. Open source AI is somewhat like the Ubuntu, for example, which is an operating system that you can download as an alternative to Microsoft, and that's something that I use on one of my computers. But it's not completely open. What we're used to hearing about open source is all the code is open, as I understand it, it's only the weightings that are open, but there are some open source companies that will either license or give you free a software that you can take and run with. And I'm interested to find out whether Travis started with one of those and then embellished it and did what he wanted with it. Because starting from scratch is like putting the millions of dollars or billions of dollars that Elon Musk put into OpenAI. I mean, starting from scratch is really, really very, very expensive. But can you tell us more about this? What's open? Like, what is this weighting? And what is involved in training the AI, which is the source of the information that the AI chatbot is giving you?
You've introduced a lot of great concepts. Maybe we can unpack a little bit. The open source has a very long history, and you talked about Ubuntu, you talked about Linux. A lot of people, myself included, came to open source via Linux, actually back in the 90s. It started by a young man in Finland who just basically saw the closed operating systems around. There was a big movement, free software movement, open source movement emerging at the time where people recognized, oh, once we have the ability to connect with each other, humans are remarkably interested in cooperating with each other. That's the one big thing learning that life has taught me is humans cooperate all over the globe. We want to cooperate. We're wired to cooperate. And the challenge is how do we ensure that cooperation leads to further cooperation, not to subjugation? It's very, unfortunately, easy for kind of the biggest bullies in the room to essentially use that cooperation against us too quickly. That happens all throughout history. And open source, it becomes a method for our cooperation to actually push back against that. So it's been around for a while. I showed up in the AI world 30 years ago, but essentially not because AI has been around for a long time, but the core of AI is a lot of math. You have to basically multiply matrices together, multiply huge volumes of data together at scale in parallel. And it's a lot of math and it's a lot of computation. And the foundations of that computation have existed in open source for at least 3 decades. So NumPy, the library I'm famous for, so to speak, for at least the nerd world or the people that kind of know about that space, this is something I wrote, gave away, because it was really important to me that the foundations of technology that could give rise to millions of innovations be open to everybody, so to amplify cooperation. Now, at the same time, how do you create businesses that allow that cooperation to scale in a way that goes beyond the tribal cooperation? This is essentially the conflict or the tension of society, is how do you enable cooperation at scale while continuing to happen, to occur cooperation. OpenAI, just another example of this tension between Elon, who was concerned that AI was focusing under one company, Google in particular. Google has been accumulating everybody's data. You have this free service, and every time you have a free service, you're really giving something away, and it's typically something pretty important. If you're not buying something, you are the something. If you're not buying a product, you are the product, as people say. And so it's important to keep that in mind, understand that that's what was happening. Elon saw it. He was like, wait, this isn't good. It's not good to have all the world's data consolidated into a single organization because that'll reduce cooperation necessarily, because there's no organization that can truly scale to the degree that humans can scale. So OpenAI was constructed to keep AI open. Well, it didn't do that. They saw the potential, and once they released a version of AI that many people had, Google had it, OpenAI did the thing of releasing it, this chatbot that allowed you to have a conversation with the machine that seemed very human. Why? Because it's really an interpolator. It orients your prompt, it orients what you've said, goes into this machine, millions of calculations, billions of calculations, results in a continuation of that prompt. It's an interpolator, and you're orienting. The way I see it is you have a massive machine that's taken all the internet's data, and then when you give it a prompt, it's orienting those data to respond to you. And of course, because it's trained on billions and trillions of data points from humans, it reflects humans. It seems like it's human. But it's not. It's a machine. I like to call them cogs. And it's really, really important that people can reproduce that it's not just in the hands of a few folks. So this openness has been around for a while. It gave rise to the technology that led to AI. So Google, OpenAI, everybody's using libraries that themselves are open source. That's one thing I think it's important people understand is, we talk about the money Elon invested. Actually, that money didn't go to build the infrastructure. That was already created by millions of people essentially cooperating over the past 3 decades to produce the foundations of technology that would enable this AI revolution, this AI ecosystem to evolve. The money went to servers primarily. The money went to large amounts of compute that was necessary to train the early models. Now, the cost of that training has been coming down, and the ability to then deploy it is also coming down. And so I think it's definitely easy to get to believe that somehow because something took a lot of money, it must necessarily take a lot of money in the future. And that's just not true. So because millions of people have constructed a fabric of technology that is open. So OpenAI used open source in order to produce their solutions. And now going forward, it's important to understand there are a lot of people out there promoting open weights versus open source. The difference is real. I mean, mostly open weights lets you use AI for your purposes. You can take the weights, and those weights are numbers in a model. They're like parameters of a model that you then deploy and do whatever you want with it on your hardware, on your systems, and you can then use it for your purposes. That's open weight. Open source gives you more of the technology around the weights to adjust it, to change the algorithm, to I see this model use this particular detail of math or this particular concept, and I want to adjust that. Well, if I have the source of the training code, for example, or the source of the code that's used to move around, they call it the harness around the model. But they're both useful. Both open weights and open source are both useful. They have different implications in what they enable. And so almost in order, open source is ideal, open weight is better, and then closed everything is very specific. I mean, it's not saying everything has to be open. If somebody does have, if they take open and create closed, at the very least, they should be doing it in a limited way and not in a way that's trying to undermine the global cooperation that led to the foundation of what they have.
So Travis,
I'll pause.
We have people in the tech industry who are arguing vociferously for closed models and for government support to keep models closed.
Yes.
Can you explain what their argument is, other than obviously that closed model with them in control gives them enormous power?
Yeah, I'll try to steelman their argument. I believe their argument is that this is a technology that enables information to flow and ideas to flow very quickly, so that if in the hands of the wrong people, bad people can do bad things more quickly if they have access to these models. And so this is a common refrain to use, fear of harm to reduce liberty, to reduce people's access to things. I'm highly suspicious of such arguments. They're very slippery slopes. But basically, this is a critical technology. I think one of the things they lean on is that it's not trivial to take 3 trillion parameters, 3 trillion weights, and then distribute them and serve them. It actually does take some significant hardware, not as much as a huge data center actually, but let's say it takes not just one computer but 10 computers. Right? Usually serve a large model would take about 10 high-powered computers to somewhere. So actually accessible to a lot of people, but they take that and say, oh, this month, since it's so expensive to host, only a few people should be allowed to have it. And then, somebody needs to be in control of whether these models are safe or not safe. The challenge with that is, what does that even mean? What does it mean for a model to be safe or not safe? I think that's a very, it's easy to say and then to point to a couple of instances. This is why the big model producers are in the habit of essentially alarmism. They want you to see bad things. They want you to see the harm AI can do. So they're it's a trade-off, because they want you to be excited about it. The other time, they want you to be aware that, oh, this has got to be constrained in the hands of only us can manage it. So that's the tension happening right now.
Let me tell you what I hear as a small business owner. What I hear is, the Chinese marching around the world saying, we're going to give open model AI, we're going to spread it widely and use it on a very diversified basis so that everybody can have it. And I hear the Americans saying, we have to have a closed model, And what I hear is the Chinese are saying, we're going to give everybody machine guns. And the Americans are saying, you, the small business owner, have to keep using bow and arrows.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's a very good metaphor for what they're saying. Of course, they wouldn't admit that's what they're saying because the argument's ridiculous, right? And if you put it like that, they're like, oh yeah, I'm on the wrong side of this argument, which they are, unfortunately. However, there's a lot of money that's gone into to prop up this model, and a lot of investors, a lot of people who want to get their money back.
Okay.
There's so much money that's gone into this that, of course, there's going to be a lot of support for the idea that these companies need to thrive.
Right. But a surprisingly large amount of that money, if you peel back the layers, is taxpayers' money.
Yes. Sure.
Right.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So, but that argument, regardless of the amount of money that's been put in already, it dwarfs the amount of resources, money, cooperation that's going to be limited if we don't flip the script, if we don't go back to our roots in America of independence, distributed prosperity, distributed autonomy. I mean, this is the year we celebrate the independence of the United States, the independence of America.
Right.
250 years of independence. It is so critical that we declare AI independence at the same time.
So
this is a really important moment for humanity.
Let me just play devil's advocate. I don't think they can control it.
They can't. You're 100% right. That's why, and in fact, I'm very passionate about people taking control of their future by taking control of their data and then control of their intelligence. But it's going to happen. The seeds are already planted. The only question is when. How much suffering, how much poor decision making will be made in the United States before the eventuality of open source AI becomes clear?
Right.
Because it's already out. It's already out. Now, fortunately, many people in the United States are waking up to this. I've actually been very excited over just the past 3 months. I've been telling this story for about basically 30 years, but particularly with AI for the past 3 years, 2.5 years. The past 2.5 months, I've been thrilled. Satya Nadella is telling the story. The All In podcast telling the story. Thinking Machines Lab. So there's investors in Silicon Valley who are put money into companies that are driving open source. NVIDIA is telling the story. Qualcomm's telling the story. Apple's telling the story. So it's actually fantastic news that it's just a matter of which, unfortunately, there are still a lot of big companies and then some large organizations in the federal government that are still pushing. I mean, even Palantir, Alex Karp got on the news and talked about the importance of openness, the importance of people controlling their own models. So we've got so many people are explaining this, but it's not over. And so that's one message. We're going to have a retaliation, not retaliation. We're going to have barbs thrown from the other side as well. I think that's what you're hearing. You see, you'll see news releases of, we had a AI escape and harm something. So see how bad it can be. We better control it, right? And
but the guys who are supposed to control it are the ones who let it escape. I mean,
correct.
Come on.
Exactly. It's like this is an impressive technology. It's going to require millions of people, billions of people preferably, but it's going to require millions of people putting on their accountability hats, their relationships that they already have, the trust institutions that we've spent centuries constructing, and then hopefully kind of deconstructing some of the antitrust institutions that have already existed as well. And we all need this to be supporting ourselves, to be supporting the distributed economy.
Right. So I'll say one thing, but then I want to turn to Polly and Carolyn and get their questions. I was telling you, it was a marvelous young woman the other day I heard say, somebody had said, the young people hate AI, and she turned to them and said, we don't hate the AI, we hate tech pros. So part of it is we need a vision of, wise governance related to all technology. And what we've seen in America is not wise people in governance. And I think there's a real hunger for wise people in governance. And that's why I think open source, you get millions of people involved, and from that can emerge the wise governance we need.
I agree. And that's where we can turn. I think that's part of my message, is we can turn to these millions of people who have been at the heart of these communities. yes, I started the NumPy project. NumPy was successful, however, because of thousands of people.
Right.
Just like anything else. It wasn't because I did it alone. I sort of started a movement and I constructed, and I was very eager to get collaborators. And then there's a lot of, give and take and compromise in order to maintain those collaborations.
So I would really encourage everyone to watch the Python documentary that you had made, because you meet those people. You meet people who could govern a system like this. Anyway, Polly and Carolyn, I've been hogging.
Well, where can we watch the Python documentary? Is it?
Lou, pull it up. I put we had it as movie of the week. On the Slayer report.
Is there a link we can put in the?
Yeah, or just go to YouTube and put in Python the documentary. You'll pull it right up.
It's on YouTube. It's freely available. The producers is a company called Cult Repo. They've made some impressive technology documentaries. Just came out with a C++ documentary.
Oh, really?
It also illustrates, yes. And they have a JavaScript documentary. I think this is one of the things that many people don't understand broadly, is just how incredible the global cooperation of technologists has been. And it's important in people, especially people's minds, as they think about the technology future. They recognize it isn't all coming out of one part of the world. The tech bros, so-called, are essentially an anomaly. They're basically a group of consolidators, and in trying to provide return to investors. They're not all bad. It's just simply the incentive structures are limited. Meanwhile, there's been millions of people cooperating, starting from the roots of the scientific endeavor and constructing amazing collaborative activities, despite being poorly funded. Despite having, that's the amazing thing, is just with a little bit of funding, a little bit of support, it's the unlocking of cooperation among millions has done amazing things. And what enabled that? Communication, just the internet enabling people to communicate with each other. That once in humans, that's the way we are. Once we enable people to communicate and kind of get out of their way, provide some basic support for that communication, it's incredible, the prosperity and the support we generate together.
So, Travis, one of the reasons I think this is so important is if you look at the economy of any place. So you're probably headed to Utah, so you live in Utah, but so we'll just take if you look at the whether it's a county or a state, we've centralized so much wealth in a way that the government has been pouring a lot of money into creating corporate monopolies, and it's dramatically lowered the possibility of the wealth creation that can come from this technology. And that's why freeing the technology and freeing the local markets, if you will, and the local capital circulation is, they need each other. You need one to do the other.
Totally agree. This is why I'm completely aligned with some of the conversations you've had and how critical it is. And they can be synergistic. They can support each other. If, for example, every jurisdiction had an AI that was supportive of them, like you can almost imagine a chamber of commerce where there was the chamber of commerce, if its purpose was essentially ensure there was an open weight model that every business could use. Just by policy, by support, by conversations. I go to countries and talk to ministers, economic ministers, and try to help them understand that if they're going to support their economy and grow it in the next century, they have to start with AI that's under their control, AI that they can then post-train. And the amazing phenomena is that's happening. I think the United States has to get on top of this. China is doing some interesting things. They're promoting these open weight models. They're more free, essentially, in that regard than we are in the United States in terms of their ability to do that. Now, I think it's really important we have a diversity of open weight models, because ultimately what goes into those models is the data that the curators decide. And that data ultimately defines the interpolation surface that your prompt will be oriented to. And then now the good news about open weight models, you might start with an open weight model from China, and then many people are concerned that, that means it's going to give me wrong answers, or it's going to send me code that dials home. There's a lot of FUD about that, a lot of fear, uncertainty, doubt, a lot of fear of, I can't touch these models. Well, you can always retrain them. I mean, just start with the open weight models and then start training it with new data. It's called post-training, and it's instruction following. It's actually what led to, any raw trained model we're not going to like it very much as humans. And so there's a post-training that every model creator, that model distributor does. OpenAI does it differently than Anthropic. They all pretty much do the same thing on the pre-training, but on the post-training is where their differentiation arises. And that's, okay, what instructions, what questions answer pairs do I give it in the final answer? So that post-training can be done. So, and every organization could do it, and it's actually not as expensive as training as the initial training. This is why Thinking Machines, which is a company that just showed up, was able to put out a 2.8 trillion parameter model, a very large model. I'm not sure if it was Kimmy actually. I think this was a billion parameter, 983 million parameter model from Thinking Machines Lab. They made an open source model. Well, they started with kind of some open weight models, then just did instruction following, just trained it in a way that they want. And so this is happening right now. It's critical, I think, that people get in front of that. That is going to require compute, distributed compute. That is going to require power and energy. And how that comes to play. I think the battle of the data centers is an interesting one, but it's also kind of been framed according to the large AI providers. They've framed the conversation, which is, in my view, a distributed AI economy has data centers that are distributed.
Right,
like I said,
exactly.
It only takes, 8. Let's say you have 8 machines. You could have a rack. There could be, thousands of data centers in a city. There could be millions across a state. There could be billions across the world. Essentially, micro data centers. Micro data centers then nobody cares.
So it seems to be much stronger and much more resilient to do it that way.
Hugely. This is one of the challenges. You just make a target the whole point of the internet was to distribute connectivity and communication, so it was less easy to be targeted. And why are we centralizing it yet again? It's a very bad mistake.
As you know, I have an opinion on why we're centralizing, but let me jump here.
Yeah.
One of my favorite books about 5 years ago, was a Chinese venture capitalist who wrote a book called AI Superpowers and talked about the danger of the United States and China just taking such an extraordinary lead in this technology that it would leave the rest of the world behind. Now, we see China saying, at least, that they don't want that they're going to try and push, open source around the world, decentralized around the world, and get other people up to speed on this technology. So do you think we're at risk of sort of 2 AI superpowers and the rest of the world left behind? How do you think it's going to go?
There is some risk of that, basically depending on how the power, energy, and financial worlds evolve, frankly, because there's not a technology risk, because as long as people have access to some amounts of distributed power and energy and some amounts of capital, but there are some tension points, some choke points in terms of now on the compute and power side, there's enough you can do even with the current models that exist in a distributed way. It doesn't require a lot of power, doesn't require a lot of compute. So I feel like that's just a matter of timing. Is that going to be, is it going to take just a year, or is it going to take 5 years? That's going to happen. But on the financial side, we still live in a very brittle economy financially, unfortunately, and that could absolutely disrupt, the distribution of prosperity and wealth. The thing I don't understand, we're somewhat familiar. Most of us haven't studied in depth, but we are aware of the concept of the Dark Ages, a medieval period, and that was a period where wealth was concentrated. People didn't own their land; they didn't own their own ability to create, and that led to, even for the most wealthy people in that society, they didn't live as well as some people live today. And so it's antithetical to the prosperity of even the people in charge for them to want this. It's going to result in a world that they don't want to be a part of. So it's a much better idea to expand humanity, to expand humanity's ability to partner, to share, to invent, to create. The possibilities are amazing. I'm actually a huge believer and optimist in the possibility of AI supported, because AI is just tools, intelligent tools, supported prosperity. But that has to be done in a distributed way. That has to be done by focusing again on the distribution that made it possible. And that's mainly one thing that I want to make people understand is AI is only possible because of the work of millions of people that came before, that provided the foundation, an open source foundation for these latest iterations to sit on top of.
So the other thing that's happening, Travis, is that many people do not understand the tool or how to use it effectively.
Yeah.
So where do you go to get that education? If I have college kids or grandkids that I want to make sure get a solid grounding on how to use and not misuse the tool, how do I do that?
It's a good question. I think fundamentally one is start to use it, recognize that where is your data going. I think part of it is just asking that question. You can even ask AI that question. Where is my data going when I talk to you? Now, it might lie to you or hallucinate, as they call it. It's not really lying. That sort of implies intent, but it might not tell you exactly truth. But just you need to be aware of what's going. There's actually lots of places to go today. There's something called Open Router. We're trying to make that available at Open Teams via a free download called Colab. So look for a free download. We're trying to help folks. But there are other free downloads you can get already to get access to models that are out there. There's Hermes Agent, there's Jan, there's just go to Open Router. There, and especially over the next several months, you're going to have more and more of this availability. Thinking Machines Lab is going to be, they have open source, they have a lot of money, they have open source models. They're going to be promoting how do they make it. Yeah, Open Router. There's Morpheus.ai. Morpheus.ai is a open source ecosystem of model providers that lets you find, where are the machines out there I can run an open model on. And then just start experimenting, start using, just being aware, I think, is one of the big things. Right now, that is the trade-off that's happening, is the big monopolists essentially are trading convenience for autonomy. And that's always been the trade-off. And so they're making it the easiest. The easiest thing to do is go to their website, type things in, you get an answer. And they've also provided desktop apps you can download. And it takes a little bit of work to produce that infrastructure. And so they're spending the investment money to produce that infrastructure so that you, as the consumer, become dependent on their delivery of that.
Right.
And so being aware that's happening and then looking for alternatives and then having conversations with other providers in the open source ecosystem, which there are many that are growing. So I'm excited about that. Obviously, at Open Teams, we're happy to help, but I also understand the problem is so big that we're not going to be the only ones. We actually need to promote an ecosystem of providers, not just one. In fact, when I say this all the time, Open Teams, we are doing this so we can provide an example, but we are not going to be the only ones. In fact, that would be an anti-pattern if we do become the only ones providing this support. We need to be supporting an example, a pattern that others can follow. And then, we'll have we're eager to build trust relationships with folks so that we can get the help they need. Because we're not saying, go off and do it on your own. We're saying get the help you need, but get it from trusted sources that are not at the same time trying to also, become your AI overlord, that are trying to basically become your AI supporter so that AI becomes a tool that you use that continues to help you and that you stay in charge of.
So, Polly, questions?
Well, I have lots of. I mean, really, I think my main concern as children's health defence is, as I said before we went live, AI is brilliant. I don't think anyone can say that it's not, but it's also dangerous. So how do we protect our? I know Catherine's kind of asked that already, but our children who just have access to everything in this day and age.
Yeah, it's a great point. I think this is another example where already our children have been exposed to AIs that have been training them to think a particular way, or effectively it's a dumb AI. Dumb AI has already hurt our children with the social media, effectively training them just to be, give them information they already want. One of the things that when I have 6 children, one of the things children, when they're very eager learners, very eager participants in the world, but they'll just pursue things, very linearly, very, low-hanging fruit. And there are definitely things that are bad patterns. Oh, this tastes good, I should eat it. Well, not if it's going to be addictive and cause you a lifetime of regret, right? There's sort of certain choices that are really bad. Oh, I like this feed that makes me angry, that shows me all the bad in the world. I really like it. Well, yes, but none of it affects your mental health. Or, I like seeing everybody's successes that social media is sending me. Well, not if it's going to cause you to feel bad about yourself and not recognize your own gifts. Like, this is the thing that social media has been doing to our children already. And so it requires some discipline, some intentional discipline. I think that's right now kind of the message. There's a little bit of intentional discipline required right now, so you don't become addicted to the the drug that's being fed you by this really cool tool that just seems free and open, but has these consequences buried in it, which are giving away your autonomy, giving away your context, giving away your information to to the provider, the way we've done with Google, the way we've done with so many of these applications that have come into our lives and have these unintended consequences. Doom scrolling, right? We've all seen it. We've all participated in this negative outcome of dumb AI. Like, this is the AI that is just simple models, right? Not even very intentional, but have these negative outcomes. So I think it's important just to, as a parent, as anybody who cares about children, you have to recognize that children need guidance. Children need guidelines. They need guidelines from loving people, not guidelines from a nanny state, not guidelines from super organization that knows everything, not some platonic, child rearing ecosystem. You need guidelines from loving, trusted connections. And we need the same for AI. Think of AI like a child, because it basically, in many ways, there's a metaphor there. It's not the same thing as a child, but it is this intelligent system that requires some oversight, requires some accountability, requires some guidance. And it's really important that we don't have this Lord of the Flies situation where, the children are put in charge of everybody else, and the children being both some of the misaligned incentives of the investment community that have concentrated in certain parts of the world, and then also the intelligence systems they produce that are also like children. And so when you hear safety, you'll hear that, Orwellian trust and safety, you'll hear it. Oh, we need this for safety. What are the guardrails? Yeah, I agree. We need guardrails, just like children need guardrails. How do we do that? We don't do it by creating the concentrated, mother of all. You don't do that with children. So with AI, it's the same. How do we put guardrails on AI? We put it in the hands of accountable intelligence, accountable people. And so we distribute the power into millions of people and use the same trust accountability networks that we've already established over 10,000 years in order to constrain it. So guardrails have to come from people, and it needs to come from millions of people. We're not going to get there by creating a new organization, a nanny state that helps guard it. And that's currently right now. But it's so tempting to do that. It's so tempting to think that there's going to be some super genius that'll help us, and they have all the powers, they'll protect us. That whisper, that temptation hasn't panned out for thousands of years. It's not going to pan out here either. What will pan out is to distribute the capability of this tool in the hands of millions of people.
I don't think I ever told you this, Travis, but when Carolyn and I were doing Hamilton Securities Group in Washington, we had hired AT&T Bell Laboratories to help us process mortgage auctions so that we could let different industries self-stratify the packages and bid against each other. It just took incredible compute power to look at all the possible permutations and figure out which made the most for taxpayers. Anyway, so I spent a lot of time at AT&T Bell Laboratories trying to sort of translate their optimization software for routing telephone calls and apply it to mortgage auctions. And it turned out that they had applied it to airline scheduling for many decades. And after many decades of doing highly complex airline scheduling, where all the personnel are giving you their preferences and what they want, and you optimizing and doing the schedules, they had the data to analyze the cost of a rule. What did it cost the company, for the unions or the government, to have rules that affected the scheduling? And one of the things they concluded was that the privileges afforded to senior pilots so constrained the model that if the pilots gave up that rule, the pilots would get better scheduling for themselves. And so their requirements of privilege was so killing the optimization that even the pilots were worse off.
Wow, I love that story.
I know. Yeah. So that's what it feels like every day as I'm watching the people who are arguing for the control model. I was saying they're so shrinking the optimization, they're going to shrink their own. But words cannot express to you how mathematically expensive tyranny is. It's just it's even more than you would intuitively guess. So
I think Carolyn has a question.
Carolyn.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. One is let's go down to the regular people level. As I understand it, and you're in this business, you can build your own AI within a company, and you start with some kind of open thing, but you could train, and as I understand it, part of training has to do with what are your sources. And I've done some work with Claude, and we're interested in certain things that are not in Wikipedia. Now, I understand Wikipedia is a major source for Claude or the search engine or the AIs that we have access to. If I want something that would be on Children's Health Defense, it does not pick that up. But if I say go to Children's Health Defense, which I have done, and here's an article, and then I ask it, does your training pick up that you just admitted this from an article that you don't usually look at? And it says, oh no, that doesn't go into my training. It remembers, if you will excuse that word, it remembers what I've been working on and have pointed it toward to look at, and it will continue to use that information in further work that I'm doing, but it doesn't learn that information. So as I understand it, you could create an in-house AI and put in Children's Health Defense and all the alt media things and have completely different results from what you get from Claude or ChatGPT. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. That's correct. There's actually 3 levels you described in that description. 3 levels of training. You've got what's called pre-training, which is these raw data that was used to train the original weights. And you're correct that it doesn't have proprietary information, like say from Children's Health. It doesn't have that information. You've also got the instruction following data. This is the list of questions, answers that are particularly oriented to help orient the model to be more human, to be more responsive to people. That's another level of training. It's called fine-tuning or just fine-tuning of the model. So you got the pre-training that gives it the basic substrate. You've got the fine-tuning, and then you have the outer context. This is what you're describing that Claude has when you give it information, it remembers. It's the memory that it has about you. And that's actually one of the critical things right now that the big models, Claude and OpenAI, are doing to addict you to their model, to make it hard to switch to something else, is they're essentially creating a model of you that they only hold, that you can't get out, you don't get access to, that helps that model respond better to you. Right? It's an important thing, actually. And so it's one of the critical things happening right now, and why the sooner we can do this, the easier it'll be to move people away from that addictive, because it's basically like a friend. I mean, it's the same thing that friends do. Friends learn about you, and you like to be around them because they know you. And it's not as hard to kind of pre-train them. Well, that's what Claude's doing. Claude's learning about you, and it's responding to you in a similar way that a friend would. Now, that's fine as long as it doesn't become this addictive relationship you can't get away from, because it isn't trained on the foundational model you need it to. That's the opportunity right now. There's these 3 ways you can take open weight models. Great, trained on the internet, fine. You don't need to. You can pre-train on your data if you'd like. Often just the fine-tuning step is enough to orient that massive data set to your specific concerns. And you don't want that data set uploaded to the internet. You want that data set to be specific to you. And now you have a model that's private, a model that you can host, a model you don't have to give away. You keep it on your servers, and it becomes the foundation for your chats, for your conversations, for what you give to internally, what you give externally. And you can even change those too. In fact, you could have a foundation model and then little adjustments to that model that you serve up to different categories of people, different personas, different tranches of people you're trying to help. This is the world that we should have. We should have billions of models.
Well, and so couldn't there be an alternative medicine AI that anybody could purchase?
Yes, absolutely. This can help healthcare, it can help legal, it can help every single space of human, exploration, innovation, but only if it's served in a distributed way. When that's in fact how we can compete, we can serve, we can help each other, we can cooperate together. Each organization, country level has what I call an intelligence hub, a hub of information that integrates to them, and then they share part of that intelligence hub with others, and then enriched by others, and that keep in a way that essentially mirrors an economy of people trading and serving each other. So there's a massive opportunity here to create a beautiful distributed AI economy, and it starts with recognizing open source as the foundation, building intelligence hubs. Everybody understand their need to create one for their organization, for their family, for themselves, for their country. And then it's really critical right now. It's not enough just to lean on one person's API or one person's model. The idea that you would rent intelligence from another company is ludicrous. It's absolutely ludicrous. Like, it makes no sense. It's like renting your autonomy. No, you need to take this capability and bring it in. And we're here to help that happen, and here to train many people to help that happen. I see a world where, thousands and thousands of folks. It's like the PC revolution. Remember when PCs, the computers were all were all mainframes, and we didn't get access to them. And then PCs became out there, and everybody had a PC on every desktop. We need an AI in every organization.
Right. But you need sovereignty. You need AI sovereignty, and you need data sovereignty internal to the person or the organization.
It starts with protecting your data. So that's.
But how do you do that if you're using how do you use that? If you're using Claude or ChatGPT?
You're not. If you're using Claude or ChatGPT, you're not protecting your data, because essentially a little bit that's okay. Maybe you don't care about some of your data going out, but you just have to recognize that's what you're doing. You have to recognize that if you're sharing information with Claude or ChatGPT, it is not yours anymore. In fact, in the United States, the law has recognized that if a lawyer uses ChatGPT, they've violated attorney-client privilege. In fact, they no longer have it, because they've sort of opened the door and had someone listen in. And so that's why a lot of law firms are recognizing this and saying, "Oh, we got to have our own," and they do.
Right. So is it possible? So the number one way that I would use an AI is for search. Yep. It's a good search engine.
Yep.
And we have a great researcher who checks everything. So we use it for search, then we check everything.
And that's pretty good. You're usually not giving away a lot when you're just searching, but you're giving away a little bit.
You're giving away a little bit. Is it possible to build your own AI that can be sufficiently trained using the open source AI so that it'll function as a search engine for you?
Yeah, that's the good news right now. That is very doable now. And then you just have to, we're preparing what the cost of that would be, because you have to, for it to be truly yours, you have to host it on hardware you control too. And that hardware could be rented hardware. I'm not saying you have to, have your own buildings. Actually, the cloud does a lot of work to get enterprise comfortable with the fact that they're just renting the compute, not giving away their knowledge. So there are lots of ways to have hosted compute that you can then have, that's your data, but you put the models up there. It takes a little bit of elbow grease, but that's pretty straightforward. And so the cost of that has come down precipitously. It is, it's a little bit more than $200 a month, right, per person, for a single person. So if you're a group of 4 or 5 people, you're used to spending essentially $1,000 a month to get access to Claude. That's a pretty good deal, because it might cost you $4,000 a month, $5,000 a month, for example, to host it yourself. So that's currently, I think, what the opportunity and challenge is to understand that trade-off of renting versus owning. There's some financial engineering that can take place, because for many people it's worth it, maybe you don't have, because essentially you can pay that cost and maybe get a loan to pay some of that cost.
So just before we close, because we only have 1.5 minutes, one of the most important things you've said, I think, and critical, I want to bring this point home, is don't fall for the fear tactics.
Yeah.
Could you repeat that again?
Yeah, do not fall for the fear tactics. It's a very common refrain. And so I think you have to lean into hope, lean into people around you, lean into love, basically. Lean into love. That's what drives human flourishing. Lean into love, lean into faith. The fear is what's going to try to get you controlled. And it's easy, because we all do it. I mean, fear is pretty easy to hit on, and it's an important thing to help you avoid things you shouldn't be doing. But fear. Right. Fear the fear.
That's right, Travis. Thank you so much for your education. It's been utterly amazing today. And on that note, to thank our viewers and your comments. We really appreciate you. And to be kind to each other. It costs nothing to be kind to each other. There's so much passive aggressiveness out there at the moment, and competition and nastiness, and just that's exhausting. Let it go. Just let it go and be kind to each other. We're brothers and sisters at the end of the day. Travis, you're amazing, and thank you so much for being on this morning.
Thank you, Travis.
Thank you, Catherine, Polly, Tommy, Carolyn. Great to see you all.
Yeah. And to our viewers, pray big, stand firm, never settle. And we'll be back with Financial Rebellion. Will we be back next week or is it Meryl?
Meryl.
Meryl. We'll be back the week after Meryl. Okay, we'll see you then. All right, so we're live. Can you tell us your name, please?
My name is Theodora Cohen.
And this is a story about your tenant.
My tenant, a young couple, and they'd lost their baby in 2016. The baby's name was Brian Morales. He wasn't even a year old. And they lived in the back of my house in a cottage. And one day I saw all these officers and police cars going up my driveway. And I ran back there with them. And little Brian, who had already passed away in his sleep while taking a nap in the back cottage, they had him out on the grass trying to do CPR on him. But he was white as a ghost, and I knew he was gone. And with that, they took him away. And I had to call the dad. He was working, a young couple. And it was really heartbreaking. They had a little daughter. This was her younger brother. Okay, with that, I was involved with the opioid crisis with the recovery center out here on Long Island, and I got to know the coroner who did the ugly truth for the opioid crisis at all the schools, and I knew him. And I had asked the dad, was this baby at the doctor's before he died? And he was. And he got me the doctor's report of all the vaccines that this little Brian had before a year old. He had 4 vaccines that week, including MMR. You can see the circled ones are the 4 vaccines he just had that week.
Can you read those out?
And they were
The ones that he had that week?
He had hepatitis A, he had P influenza, he had PF quad, he had the MMR, and he also had the Verifax, the varicella, the P varicella vaccine. And when I looked at the whole list, remember, he wasn't even a year old. He had 16 vaccines before he was a year old. The mom was saying how tired he would always be, and this time he fell asleep in the nap and he never woke up. They're considering it. I called the coroner in Suffolk County, Michael Kaplan, and we discussed the case, and I told him that I felt this was a vaccine death. And he says, well, they gave the vaccines according to the schedule. And I said, no, we have to take this further. And it sent us to the New York University Hospital for the parents to have a discussion with them, and they got nowhere with it. They didn't even want to hear the word vaccines. And so, to my knowledge, this little baby died as a result.
And do you have permission from them to tell the story?
Pardon me?
Do you have permission from the parents to tell this story?
Not yet.
Okay, we are live right now, so that might be an issue. But it is tragic, and you see the babies here.
I'm here. I am here because not long after that, there was another baby up not far from us that was in the newspapers that they considered another SIDS case. Toddler's sudden death leaves family searching for answers. That was in 2018 in the same town.
Let's have a look at that.
Out east, Riverhead, and
yeah, another one.
And so there's an organization too. I don't know. You might want to take a look at this. SUDCRCC. It's the sudden infant deaths, and they don't know why. And the sudden infant deaths. That's what they title it now. Nobody's really looking into the vaccine issue. Haven't been for a while. Maybe they are now, but I will tell the parents that I was here, and they would like some closure, I'm sure.
Yeah,
Young couple.
terrible. How long ago did that happen?
2016.
2016, yeah.
Mid-October 2016, and he got the shots on here October 4th, 2016.
Is there anything else you want to tell the people?
This is not new.
Mm-hmm.
I was in Hippocrates Health Institute in the 90s with Brian Clemens, and someone came down when Lenny Horace was speaking. A woman came down, her baby died the next day as a result of vaccines. This goes all the way back to the 90s that I know of. That's why I was able to identify this. And I've been keeping up with Children's Health Defense, High Wire, and I watch you speak. And it has to get out there. They're just covering this up with sudden infant deaths, syndromes, and but it's even bigger than that. It's bigger. The pharmaceutical companies or have some kind of plan going on to.
Well, thank you for
Buildings.
telling us about your tenant's baby. And I hope that they understand. Now, are they still your tenants or have they moved?
What's that?
Have they moved or are they still your tenants?
They moved. Not only did they move, but they ended up splitting up, which I hear happens a lot for families that lose their children. They ended up so I'm in touch with the dad still, and I'm going to let him know.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll wait for that permission. But thank you so much for doing this. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
This and all CHD TV programming is made possible by generous support from viewers like you. Please consider making a contribution today to keep our programming going strong. Thank you.